Good afternoon. A man in his 80s has died following a fire at a retirement home in North York. Flames broke out in the facility on Finch Avenue West late last night. Now an investigation into the cause of the deadly blaze is underway. CTV's Janice Golding has been following the investigation and joins us live with the latest. Janice.
Hi, Natalie. Yes, a man in his 80s has died following a two-alarm blaze in a North York retirement residence last night. Now, fire officials tell us that they were called to the scene just before 10:30 p.m. and when they arrived, they were directed to the 4th floor of the building. They quickly evacuated an elderly man who would unfortunately die in hospital. Officials say more than 20 trucks and between 70 and 80 firefighters attended the scene, given the fact it was a multi-unit institution with higher occupancy, but the fire was small and contained to a single unit. No other residents were displaced, given the smoke conditions were very light, and Toronto Fire was able to ventilate the scene quickly. The Ontario Fire Marshal will be investigating, but there is no word yet as to how the fire started.
Alarms came in. We responded with multiple crews to the fire, and we are directed to the floors where the smoke was. They made contact with the occupant in their unit, and the rescue was made down to the lobby where patient care was transferred to paramedics.
This is just tragic news that I heard about early this morning. I wanted to come up here and learn exactly what happened, whether there are any lessons to be learned. But our hearts go out to the family and friends of the deceased. I want to thank fire services for their prompt response and for containing the fire.
Fire officials want to remind the public to be careful around open flames, such as candles, and to make sure your smoke detectors and your carbon monoxide detectors are working. Reporting live from Janice Golding, now back to Natalie.
Okay, thank you, Janice. A woman pulled from a burning home in Malvern 2 days before Christmas has died. Jennifer Sosa Max says her aunt, Rebecca Sosa, died yesterday. Her uncle, Amadeo Sosa, remains in hospital in critical condition. The couple has 3 daughters, including 2 who also lived in the home that caught fire, but they were not home at the time. The blaze broke out at the couple's house on Snowball Crescent near Shepherd and Markham Road just before 5:30 a.m. on December 23rd. The cause of the blaze is still under investigation. Meanwhile, one firefighter was injured while responding to a house fire near Midland and Steeles early this morning. Flames broke out at a residence on Shallowford Court around 3:30 a.m. Fire crews say everyone inside the home was able to get out safely. There has been no word on the severity of the firefighters' injuries. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. Police are searching for this man in connection with a suspicious incident at Kennedy subway station. Investigators say around 6:30 a.m. yesterday, the suspect approached the victim on the platform at the station and attempted to light their jacket on fire. No injuries were reported. 2 people have been charged with murder in connection with a fatal stabbing in Brampton. 26-year-old Jaiden Brett-Hughes of Mississauga and 31-year-old Tandaeka Frazer of Brampton have been charged with second-degree murder. The pair are accused in the stabbing death of a 32-year-old man inside a home in the area of Main Street North and Church Street East on December 26th. Peel police say they believe the incident is isolated and they are not looking for any additional suspects. Still to come this hour, new polling finds the federal Liberals and Conservatives in a statistical tie for support heading into the new year. We'll have the details on the data a little later in the newscast. But first, the Ontario SPCA is celebrating a major milestone. The organization says it met its Home for the Holidays adoption campaign goal, helping more than 500 animals find homes across the province. The campaign, which ran from December 1st to the 24th, focused on finding families for animals of all ages, including senior pets. The SPCA says 688 animals were placed in new homes, but it is also encouraging those looking for a pet to consider adoption. Well, New Year's Eve is just a couple days away, and the city has outlined its plans to ring in 2026. The celebration returning to the waterfront, and that's where we find CTV's Beth McDonnell, who joins us live now with a preview of the year-end party. Beth.
Natalie, much of the action for New Year's Eve will be happening here at Harbourfront and along the waterfront. The entertainment kicks off at Harbourfront Stage at 10 p.m. The mayor, Michaela Couture, and our very own Jessica Smith are hosting. The headliner this year is Lou Kala. The Congolese-Canadian pop singer is bringing her fiery voice and energy to Harbourfront Stage, right next to where skaters can enjoy music and take in the waterfront atmosphere. Of course, at midnight, expect the big fireworks show. The best place to see The fireworks go off. In addition to Harbourfront will be the Toronto Music Garden, Sherbourne Commons, Sugar Beach, HTO Park West, and Harbour Square Park.
One of the highlights of the evening will be the 10-minute-long high-altitude fireworks display that takes place over Toronto's Inner Harbour, viewable across multiple viewing areas, as well as online at the Culture TO YouTube channel, which will include ASL and closed captioning. So whether you want to join us in person at the waterfront or from the coziness of home, we have options for everyone.
Public transit is strongly recommended as the preferred option for getting around. The TTC, Go Transit, and Up Express will be offering free service starting at 7 p.m. on December 31st and continuing until 8 a.m. On January 1st. So right up until, the morning, there'll be free service on transit. The TTC subway will also run later than usual. So last trains departing after 2 a.m. The final northbound train on line 1 from Union Station will depart towards Finch Station at 2:31 and 2:27 towards Vaughan Metropolitan Center Station.
I asked the TTC why trains were not running 24 hours on New Year's, and I was told it boils down to demand. People coming down to Harbourfront and the waterfront area can expect road closures, and to avoid crowding at Union Station, the TTC is encouraging people to also try to go to Queen Station and King Station, and to help get people out of the waterfront area. There's also special buses that will run along Jarvis to Sherbourne Station and Spadina to Bathurst Station. Reporting live at Harbourfront, I'm Beth McDonnell. Natalie, back to you.
Good to know. Thank you, Beth. More news in a moment, but first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. It is cold, we have some flurries, and it is gusty. A wind warning in effect on this final Monday of 2025. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. Jess.
It is chilly out there, Natalie. The wind this morning, not terrible out of the southwest. We've seen it shift more northwesterly, and it is cold as we head throughout the day. And this system, as it moves out, another one behind it, kind of gives us a few days of this kind of windy, messy weather. So something to keep in mind when you plan out the next couple of days. We're holding on to these really strong wind gusts almost start to finish throughout the day today. That is what is prompting the wind warning for us here in the city of Toronto, right around the Golden Horseshoe, and special weather statements for wind as well the further east you go. We're also dealing with some snow swell watches and warnings, freezing rain warnings further north. Still a busy time. I know a lot of folks still traveling throughout this week, so keep that in mind. Temperature-wise, you'll notice that chill in the air as we head throughout the day today, and that's not changing at all as we head in towards the evening. Through the islands right now, we're at -1, but it feels like -10 in those really, really gusty winds, at times upwards of 80 kilometers an hour. Through Pearson, much the same. They're getting some breaks of sun, but really not much. And as we head in towards the evening, we're dropping down to -8, but it will feel like -18, and that chance of lake effect snow not leaving us. Coming up, your full forecast right now. It's over to Natalie.
All right. Thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
Well, it has been a whirlwind year in provincial politics with a rare winter election, the ongoing trade war with the U.S. and opposition parties trying to find their footing under a third majority PC government. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris sat down with NDP leader Marit Stiles to look back at what Stiles calls a surprising year.
Look, I'm fed up.
The NDP leader's exasperation loud as the year wound down.
It is the endless grift of a anti-democratic and, yes, corrupt government.
An accusation out of bounds in parliamentary debate, enough to get Marit Stiles kicked out of the legislature.
All right, let's go.
She's been trying to make noise after a rough ride in a winter election called early.
Well, yeah, it was a tough one, no question.
New Democrats had less than 19% of all the votes cast, but with enough seats to form the official opposition. At the party's convention in September, a sobering moment for Stiles, receiving only 68% support in a review of her leadership.
We need to make change in this party.
Shaking up her team with the new chief of staff who's worked with NDP premiers in Alberta and Manitoba.
She's helped defeat conservative governments, and that's our intention here.
That hill is steep, with progressive conservatives enjoying a healthy lead in the polls. The NDP a distant third behind the leaderless Liberals. Stiles has been trying to chip away. focusing on potential preferential treatment by the Minister of Labour in handing out Skills Development Fund grants.
It's outrageous. I've never seen anything like it.
Needling at the Premier, who used to rail against the government gravy train.
And now he's conducting it. You know, toot toot, all aboard.
Stiles says that frustration is genuine.
I see government programs that are set up to do great things, like train people for jobs that we need and that they need, going to increasingly insiders, donors to the Conservative Party.
She's frustrated, too, by what she sees as a government without spark.
During the election, it was like, you know, Team Canada, all in, elbows up, let's go. Where is that? Where did it go?
With 1,000 workers at Algoma Steel soon to be laid off, an uncertain future for auto workers, Stiles says Ontario should be looking at taking a stake in key companies and industries.
Other provinces do it. We have done it in Ontario before. We have saved jobs. We have saved mills. We could be doing that right now.
To light a brighter path for 2026 and beyond. Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Well, it is quiet this week at Toronto City Hall, but as usual, the rest of the year was anything but. From taxes and transit to snow removal and shelters, there were many changes at the municipal level that impact the way services are delivered and paid for in this city. I sat down with two other City Hall watchers, John Moore of News Talk 1010 and CP24's Nick Dixon, to look back on the policy and the politics of 2025.
Let's talk about municipal affairs. There was plenty going on in the city of Toronto this year, and we are right now in this segment taking a look at 2025. My name is John Moore from News Talk 1010. What a pleasure to be joined in studio by some friends from CP24, news anchors Natalie Johnson and Nick Dixon. Okay, so let's start actually as every year, and you know, when we look forward a little later on, perhaps we'll start with the budget there as well. But the budget this year, it's Nick, I'll start with you. It's a forever struggle because we can never seemingly balance the books. They can never seemingly find anything to cut. And then we go begging to other jurisdictions for money.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we've been in the stage where the first two budgets under Mayor Olivia Chow have been pretty big tax increases, 9.5 and then a 6.5, you know, year after year. And again, that, like you said, we haven't seen a whole lot cut. We've seen promises of expanded library hours and other, you know, school food programs and things along those lines. But what we haven't seen is the ability to sort of trim or find savings in these budgets. And so I think Torontonians are likely thinking to themselves, well, what does this mean for next year? And where is this budget? Where is this going to be going? Because people just, quite frankly, can't grasp where the city's finances are. It's tough for us as reporters and anchors.
Well, Natalie, it always seems like we can never find anything to cut. And then we end up with programs that I think are nice to have, but not necessarily demonstrably the city's business. Like, I'm sure you've had the mayor trot out her children's lunch program 100 times on your show, as she has on mine.
I think there's a lot of questions about whether things like the student nutrition program does fall under the auspices of municipal government. When you talk about the tax hike, you know, 9.5% 2 years ago, that was the biggest hike since amalgamation, and then we had 6.9% this past year. You know, the overall effect is that Torontonians are paying a lot more in taxes. You add in the last year of John Tory's term, we're looking at upwards of 20% over the last 3 years. And so the question that the Torontonians are asking here is, we are paying more. Are we seeing that play out in the level of services that are being offered by City Hall?
Let's talk about a theme that I think we saw a lot this year, and that is, you know, things that weren't working. And we can go back, for example, to the snow removal. And yes, there were 3 massive storms in a row. But Nick, when the mayor continued to insist that everything was fine and, you know, then finally called a press conference and threw everybody under the bus who worked for the city, it was not one of her shining moments.
No, and that was one of the more shocking situations, right? When we heard about, you know, calls not being answered, like 99% of calls to City Hall complaining about snow not getting answered, or the fact that the equipment was breaking down left and right and wasn't working. I mean, I even circle back to when John Tory left and when Mayor Chow was ultimately elected, all we heard about was Toronto was broken, which was kind of something that came out of left field to some people who were observers of it. And now we're seeing Toronto seems to remain broken and can't get the basics, snow clearing, i.e., and yes, there was a lot of snow, but even close to right.
Well, and Natalie, you know, extend beyond snow clearing. We have bathrooms that are not open in public parks. We have the encampments, which we'll treat as a separate topic altogether. We had a heat wave. where they closed the pools because it was too hot for the lifeguards, and people were just putting palm to forehead.
Well, you know, the political narrative at City Hall these days from the opposition is if the city can't plow the roads in the winter and keep the pools open in the summer, what are we doing here, given the level of taxes that Torontonians are paying right now? And so we've had audits look into some of these issues, like the snow clearing removal, for example. You know, contracts that were signed in which snow clearing was included, but snow removal was not. We've had the mayor blame these contracts that were signed under the previous administration. But ultimately, over and over again, there are signs pointing to systemic failures where there's a lack of oversight either at the staff level or higher up at the mayor's office that continue to lead to a lot of these issues that really touch Torontonians directly every single day. I mean, when you're talking about seniors stranded in their homes because the sidewalks are impassable, you know, that is something that Torontonians will care about and probably will be thinking about next year.
And Nick, I think 2025 officially was the year where the mayor could no longer say, I inherited this, I inherited that. I mean, she had to own it.
At some point, you have to, right? And, you know, certainly she had that opportunity, I think, to blame the previous administration. But, yeah, at this point, you get to the point where you've been calling the shots. You've been putting your priorities forward. You know, she runs the executive. She puts the priority items forward at City Hall week to week, month to month. At some point, it becomes hers.
And I think everybody understands that these things don't turn around overnight, but you can only promise a more robust response so many months after months until you're actually expected to deliver on it.
All right. Well, I hate to be such an Eeyore, but let's go to another file where things aren't necessarily working, and that would be the TTC. And I know that we can, you know, the mayor on my show said, listen, it's not my fault Eglinton Crosstown is behind schedule or the Finch line was handed over so late. That was Metrolinx. However, when it comes to the TTC and its on-time performance, you know, it is not a particularly pleasant thing. It's riding the red rocket ain't fun.
Well, and I think there's also a safety concern that a lot of riders are considering at this point as well. You know, we've heard the analogy about transit takers standing with their backs to the wall in the subway stations. And that is the reality that a lot of people are feeling, even if it's not, you know, actually playing out. It's the perception, which is, you know, almost as big of an issue when it comes to ridership levels. And as ridership declines, the fare box revenue drops as well. You have less money to fuel the system. And so the question here is, you know, how do you get people back on transit? And of course, that addresses the traffic issue as well.
It felt to me a lot like that Spider-Man meme where there's all the different Spider-Mans pointing at each other. That's kind of the vibe I got from TTC, Metrolinx, transit, province, you know, city. It was all sort of your fault, your fault, your fault, your fault, but no one was actually, the buck never stopped anywhere as much as the service did stop in many places.
Although Olivia Chow will trumpet that she did not raise the fares. Also, we moved effectively social workers into the system, police into the system, more guards, and there was sort of not a declaration necessarily, but Nick, that it's not an extension of the homeless shelter system anymore.
Yeah, right. And I think that makes a lot of sense, getting the social workers into the system, because if you ride the system, and I don't even ride it that regularly, but you do see incidences of, you know, emotionally disturbed people or people on there just sort of stirring it up, to use a polite term, right? And so you get these instances, which plays exactly what Natalie just said about when safety is an issue, when the perception is this isn't safe, I don't feel comfortable, then that cycle, that vicious cycle of lower ridership and everything begins. So I understand the concept there of getting that on there. Whether or not that's going to draw enough people back on to maintain these fare freezes for the last several years will be, for 2026, could be a story.
Yeah, 2025, one more year of encampments, and I know Natalie, the mayor, again, will insist we were slowly streets to homes getting people out of the camps, but I think a lot of Torontonians think, how long is this going to go on? It's been 5 years.
Well, the administration's official approach on this is a compassionate approach where they offer outreach and assistance instead of actually clearing these encampments out for the most part. We did see a call in the fall from Brad Bradford, who was running for mayor, to declare a no-go zone 200 meters around daycares, schools, and playgrounds. This went to council. Council ultimately deciding that 50 meters would be the radius that they would work with on that. And there is going to be 3 offers of shelter to the people who are living in encampments before they are cleared out, essentially. But you know, this goes to the broader question of housing in the city. It's been a major challenge for City Hall to build the shelters that are going to be available to the people who would otherwise be living in these encampments. So
So, the housing portfolio overall is one that is probably the #1 challenge.
And even conditions in shelters too. I mean, you do hear from people in these encampments, they feel safer, more secure in an encampment than in a city-run shelter.
Not a lot of time, but very quickly from both of you, a good year for crime, if we can classify it that way. Natalie, I mean, we're about half the number of homicides, but another terrible year of anti-Semitism and relentless protests.
And we've seen the police budget completely drained, from the staffing requirements that are needed for these protests, that have really proliferated throughout the city. Huge increase in intimidation and anti-Semitism, certainly, that led to the bubble zone discussion at City Hall. So there are some new parameters in place for places of worship, for example, that can apply to have this protective area around their establishments. But, as we continue to see these incidents unfold, it's clear that it is still a major problem in this city.
Yeah.
Last
and
word,
if I could really
fast,
just add really quickly, what we saw in Australia just recently really speaks to exactly those issues. We're going to hear so much more of that next year, too.
Thank you so much for this. Good to talk. That is Nick Dixon and Natalie Johnson from CP24. I'm John Moore, normally at News Talk 1010.
To federal politics now, where a new poll finds the Liberals and Conservatives in a virtual tie for voter support heading into the new year. According to the Liaison Tracking Survey, which polled 1,000 Canadians, the Liberals gained 1% support, rising to 39% nationally. Support for the Conservatives is down 1% to 37% overall. The 2-point gap falls within the margin of error, which is just over 3%, meaning the parties are in a statistical tie. Meanwhile, the federal NDP dropped by a single point to 11% support. Prime Minister Mark Carney has an approval rating of 56%. The cost of borrowing dropped in Canada this year, and home prices have come down as well. But many people are still finding it impossible to enter the housing market. CTV's Maria Saru has the details.
For islanders dreaming of a place of their own, the gap between wanting a house and affording one can still feel wide. Margaret Campbell and her partner moved back to PEI after living in Halifax, hoping to buy at a better price.
At least we'd own our home and we'd be secure in the knowledge that we're not going to get rent-evicted.
Instead, the couple and their 4 kids settled on a rented 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. They've put the dream of buying on hold, saying it's simply not possible, though it's what they want for their family.
We just want somewhere to live forever and our kids to have a yard to play in, and preferably their own bedrooms, or at least rooms that are big enough to share comfortably. Somewhere that when we're gone, one day they'll have that.
Numbers released this month by the PEI Real Estate Association show that the benchmark price of a home this November was almost $370,000, down from about $374,000 last November, a drop of roughly 1%.
There's actually quite a high inventory of houses here on Prince Edward Island the past couple years, really, which will give buyers more of an opportunity to be picky.
Real estate agent Jeff McKay adds, despite that recent cooling, prices overall are still headed up.
It changes small amounts each year. Like you won't see the big jumps. So I think it'll be steady growth, but marginal.
Nationally, British Columbia has the highest home price of around $968,500. New Brunswick has the lowest at $334,000. Homes here on PEI are still well below the national non-seasonally adjusted average price of about $682,000, according to the Canadian Real Estate Association. But for families like Campbell's, buying is still a stretch. Maria Saru, CTV News, Charlottetown.
U.S. President Donald Trump is set to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Florida today, with the leaders discussing the fragile ceasefire in Gaza. The first phase of the ceasefire began in October. Since then, both Israel and Hamas have accused each other of violating the truce amid continued violence in Gaza. The next stage of the truce has not yet been implemented. Trump and Netanyahu are also expected to discuss concerns about Iran during their meeting. The U.S. has announced its pledge for United Nations humanitarian aid, which data suggests is a fraction of the size it has been in recent years. The U.S. is committing $2 billion as the Trump administration continues to cut foreign assistance. The cuts come as need has increased globally, with conflict areas like Gaza and Sudan experiencing famine. Critics say the aid cuts by Western nations have resulted in millions of people facing hunger, displacement, and disease. In previous years, aid funding has been as much as $17 billion, according to United Nations data. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has released a New Year's message calling for an end to chaos and uncertainty around the world.
In 2026, I call on leaders everywhere, get serious, choose people and planet over pain, and I urge everyone who hears this message, play your part. Our future depends on our collective courage to act.
Guterres highlighted a push to create a safer world, calling on countries to cut back on wars, violations of international law, and military spending. China's military conducted drills around the island of Taiwan amid continued tensions between the two nations. The military drills come as China warns against what it calls separatist and external interference forces. The warning comes after a recent U.S. arms sale to Taiwan and a statement by Japan's prime minister outlining support for the island nation. In response, Taiwan has put its forces on alert, calling the Chinese government the biggest destroyer of peace. 13 people are dead and 98 others have been injured following a train derailment in Mexico. The interoceanic train, which connects the Pacific Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico, went off the rails yesterday while going around a curve. Officials say 241 passengers and 9 crew members were on board at the time. The train line opened in 2023 as part of a push to boost rail travel in southern Mexico. New Yorkers and tourists gathered in Times Square to mark the 19th annual Good Riddance Day. The event is organized by the Times Square Alliance and One Times Square, the co-organizers of the city's New Year's Eve celebration. It sees people write down bad memories or thoughts from 2025 on a Broadway show-style ticket before tearing them up to signify a fresh start for the new year.
That's a wild weather start to our Monday here in the city and across the GTA thanks to all of that wind. And unfortunately, it's not going anywhere as we head throughout the afternoon. So take care as you head out on the roads. We've already reached our daytime high today, so we're only getting cooler as we head into that kind of late afternoon, early evening with those winds becoming northwesterly, adding a bite to the air. As we head in towards New Year's Eve, unfortunately, it doesn't get much better, but at least the snow will clear up in time for the fireworks at midnight, depending on where you're watching from. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast, including what you can expect to say goodbye to 2025 and hello to 2026.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
Welcome back. Well, it was a day of weather warnings yesterday. Rain, freezing rain, and now all of that wet weather has made way for the winds.
It has, and it's like when you're thinking of leftovers, when you're eating dinner, you get a little bit of everything. That's been the forecast the past, feels like 2 or 3 days, and it only continues, so you're welcome. As we head through today through to almost Wednesday. I guess the good news is as we head in towards at least New Year's Eve, if you're heading out to watch any of the New Year's Eve celebrations or joining us down at the harbor front, at least we get a break to watch some of the fireworks. Weather is brought to you by the Frazer Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. Now, it is cold, it is windy, but a break from some of the lake effect snow. It'll be on and off throughout the day today. Again, the bigger issue really is going to be the wind as we head throughout your Monday here in the city of Toronto and across a good portion of the GTA. If you're closer to Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, you are experiencing more in the way of snow, but everybody getting a little bit of something, and that includes the cold as we head throughout the day today. -2 right now, feeling like -11. Actually, still a little warmer through Ottawa. They're holding on to that last little bit of warm air that we had earlier on this morning. Anywhere, though, north of North Bay, holding on to frigid temperatures as we head throughout your Monday. We already reached our daytime high earlier today of 0 when we had that more southwesterly wind. It's northwesterly now. It is cold. It is windy, and none of that is changing as we head throughout the day today. Into this evening, -8, feeling like -18 here in the city of Toronto. We are in those kind of upper teens, low 20s when it comes to the wind chills tonight, so please be careful. Exposed skin can freeze very quickly. The bulk of this low sitting north of North Bay will push past us as we head throughout the day today, but as it rotates through that colder northwesterly air, it is going to continue to fire up that lake effect snow machine. Again, for us, the issue isn't the snow in the GTA, it is more the wind. As we make our way throughout your Monday afternoon, a bit of a break later on, but the bulk of that heavy snow, again, Lake Huron, Georgian Bay, it's going to continue as we head throughout our Monday. As we head in towards the evening, again, we don't get a full break from it, but at least for our friends, again, if you're traveling towards cottage country, it gets a little bit easier on you, but the temperatures stay really, really cold. Throughout Tuesday, we do get some break from the flurry activity, but it remains below that seasonal point. And then as we head in towards your Wednesday, if you're heading out for New Year's, you're staying in for New Year's, we are looking at another dose of snow, heavy at times mid-afternoon, and then it breaks up as we head in towards the early evening and as we approach midnight. As we step in towards the next few days, we round out 2025. We started off just above that seasonal mark, and then we get really cool as we head in towards Wednesday. So again, if you're outside Wednesday for the fireworks or for any New Year's Eve activities, layering is going to be key. We get a little sunshine, some breaks as we welcome in 2026 on Thursday. And then as we head in towards the week ahead, we will see breaks of some sunshine here and there. So not a fully cloudy start to 2026, but temperature-wise, we hover just around that seasonal mark as we head in towards the end of next week. So from kind of New Year's to New Year's Day, it is chilly, but you know what? It'll be all right as long as you're moving and staying safe. And as we step in towards the end of next week, or the end of this week, I should say, it feels like next week, but it's the end of 2025, beginning of 2026, we at least get back to a much more seasonal point. Hopefully this helps you plan. Right now, Natalie, I'll send things back to you.
Okay, thank you, Jess.
Thank you.
In sports, the Raptors will be looking for a second straight win tonight when they take on the Orlando Magic.
Walter, B.I., the three, no, Scotty!
The team went to overtime against the Golden State Warriors yesterday, eventually winning the game 141-127. The Raps got a historic performance from Scotty Barnes, who had a triple-double with 25 rebounds. That ties a franchise record. Tip-off for tonight's game against the Magic is set for just after 7:30 at Scotiabank Arena. Meanwhile, the Raptors have signed center Mo Bamba to a one-year deal. The 27-year-old was the 6th overall pick in 2018, but has bounced around the league, playing for 5 different teams. The 7-foot center is expected to fill an immediate need for the Raptors, who are without center Jakob Poeltl due to injury. The Maple Leafs also needed overtime in their game against the Detroit Red Wings last night.
Getting back is Riley. On the wing for Kane. In and out of the glove. Making the play. Hildeby. Loose puck here for Simon Edmondson, though. He gets chopped at. Edmondson right to the goal. He scores! What a play.
The Red Wings scored the game winner just under 2 minutes into the extra period. The 3-2 loss snapped a 2-game winning streak for the Leafs. They will be back on the ice tomorrow when they host the New Jersey Devils. Team Canada will be back on the ice this evening at the World Junior Hockey Championship, looking for a 3rd straight win to start the tournament.
Page trying to slap pass it back of Anders McKenna. Looks back across. They score!
Team Canada is coming off a 2-0 overtime victory over Latvia on Saturday. That win avenged a shootout loss to Latvia in last year's tournament. Puck drop for tonight's game against Denmark is set for 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Still to come, concerns about online advice regarding babies and sleep. Some of the tips and tricks being offered to new parents can actually put kids at risk. Pat Foran will have the details when we come back. Well, if you've ever stayed up all night with a baby trying to do anything to get them to sleep, you know there is a wealth of tips and tricks available online offering sleep advice for new parents. But experts warn you can't trust everything you read on social media. Strategies shared by influencers, AI chatbots, and even retailers can confuse parents and put babies at risk. Here's Pat Ford and Consumer Alert.
Shayna Raphael's journey to become a sleep safety advocate began with a tragedy.
Claire's death absolutely was preventable.
Her daughter Claire died at daycare, sleeping on a soft mattress meant for adults.
Had she been in a safe sleep environment, had she been in the crib that we thought she was sleeping in, she would be here today.
Shayna set up a nonprofit in her daughter's name, the Claire Bear Foundation. She posts safety tips and answers questions on Instagram and TikTok. But not everyone on social media has safety as their top priority. Recent studies found more than 9 out of 10 infant sleep images shared on Instagram were unsafe based on long-established scientific safe sleep guidelines. This includes babies sleeping on their stomachs or with pillows, blankets, or stuffed animals.
Sometimes we have people giving information that is in direct contrast to what those specialists and experts are saying.
And Consumer Reports says it's not just influencers sharing unsafe sleep information. Some online retailers are sending mixed messages as well.
You might see a listing online for a baby lounger that says in the description, this is not safe for infant sleep. But next to that, you'll see a product photo with a sleeping baby in it. So which one of those is a sleep-deprived parent going to remember?
Another source of misinformation, AI chat programs sometimes recommend sleep solutions that have been linked to an increased risk of infant mortality.
Online tools like AI, search, and social media, they tend to give us the answers that we want to hear. And those might be different than what the evidence shows is actually safe.
Following safe sleep practices every night and for every nap can help keep your infant safe and prevent the risk of sleep-related deaths. Pat Foran, CTV News.
Some passengers living with disabilities have been speaking out against WestJet and the weight restrictions it has placed on mobility aids. CTV's Alex Karpa spoke with travelers about the impact of the rules and their calls for change.
Travel has always been a big part of Charisse Griffin's life. She's flown countless times with WestJet before and never had any issues. That is, up until this year. The airline's weight restriction policy for power wheelchairs has made flying much more difficult.
A lot of hassle. It's been frustrating and angry.
WestJet has a cap of 300 pounds for mobility aids on the vast majority of its aircraft. Griffin says this limit is a barrier for many power wheelchair users.
Majority of power wheelchairs like mine, are over 300 pounds.
Former MP Stephen Fletcher says he was told by an airline agent last February that they would not be able to carry his wheelchair on a flight from Winnipeg to Toronto due to its weight.
WestJet has invented a policy that discriminates.
Fletcher filed a regulatory complaint with the Canadian Transportation Agency. In a documented response, the airline said accessibility regulations allow it to refuse transport of heavier mobility aids. The document also states that power wheelchairs would, quote, jeopardize aircraft airworthiness.
That is a very serious thing to say, because if it's true, then we have an international crisis.
We reached out to WestJet to get a better explanation of their decision, but have not received a response. For Griffin, the message to the airline is simple: change the rule.
All I'm looking for is equal access so that I can fly on the same carrier that you can.
Griffin says flying is already difficult enough for her in the situation she is in, but says this rule makes it far more stressful and uncomfortable. Alex Karpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Still to come, looking back at the trade turmoil of 2025. We'll have more on how U.S. tariffs dominated global trade when we come back.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
2025 began with threats from the U.S. to upend global trade, with President Donald Trump eventually unveiling a long list of countries to be hit by tariffs. That marked the beginning of an ongoing trade war between Canada and the United States, which is set to continue into the new year. CTV's Michael Couture takes a look back at 2025's trade turmoil.
We don't need their cars, and we don't need the other products. We don't need their milk.
It was the opening salvo in the year-long trade war. Threatening to take Canada by economic force, President Donald Trump floated punishing tariffs on his first day in office.
We're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada because they're allowing vast numbers of people. Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in and fentanyl to come in.
They applied to all goods not covered by CUSMA. The day they took effect, Canada hit back.
Tonight, I am announcing Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
Provinces also joined in the fight, removing American alcohol from liquor stores and threatening to cut off energy exports to the U.S.
The next Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney.
After campaigning on going elbows up in the face of Trump's tariffs, Prime Minister Mark Carney went to D.C. a week after the election, looking to reset the relationship. In that Oval Office meeting, the Prime Minister did push back on talk of Canada becoming the 51st state.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale. And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale.
The two met again at the G7 in Kananaskis, where they reportedly set a 30-day timeline to get a deal done. But the pathway remained the problem.
I've always been a tariff. It's simple, it's easy, it's precise, and it just goes very quickly. And I think Mark has a more complex idea, but also very good.
Over the summer, Canada responded to Trump's complaint about the digital services tax by removing it. While talks continued, so did the threats and uncertainty for businesses.
You guys are about as dumb as a bag of hammers for doing this.
And when the company that makes Crown Royal whiskey moved work at a bottling plant from Ontario to the U.S., Premier Ford didn't hold back.
So this is what I think about Crown Royal. That's what they could do. And I think everyone else should do the same thing.
With trade talks slowing, another Oval Office meeting took place in October, where Trump spoke glowingly of Carney and Canada.
I would think he's more popular now. He's a good man. He does a great job, and he's a tough negotiator.
So then what's holding things up? If he's a great man and you want to do a deal with Canada, why aren't you?
Because I want to be a great man, too.
But that laughter would fade after Ontario released an anti-tariff ad in the U.S. using a speech by former President Ronald Reagan. Trump called it a hostile act, while his ambassador to Canada described it as election interference.
A foreign government running political ads in the United States during election season is unprecedented.
Carney would apologize to Trump at the APEC summit, and weeks later, the prime minister downplayed how much or little he communicates with Trump.
Who cares? I mean, it's a detail. It's a detail. I spoke to him. I'll speak to him again when it matters.
Those words got this response from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre.
All of us on this side of the House care about the communities that are being emptied out in our forestry, the steel workers in Hamilton who don't have jobs to pay their mortgages. We care.
Carney, Trump, and Sheinbaum had a 45-minute meeting after the FIFA World Cup draw. In the same week that Trump mused about letting CUSMA expire, he also agreed to keep working on the trade agreement.
Canada makes a lot of things that we don't need because we make them also. But we'll work it out.
The following week, Canada's envoy to D.C. announced she would be stepping down in the new year, saying it was time.
Our discussions with the United States with the CUSMA review, the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Trade Agreement review, that's going to start up in the new year. And I think it's important that we have someone in place that is going to be here through the conclusion of those discussions.
The formal joint review of CUSMA is scheduled for July 1st, 2026, setting up what could be another year of turmoil with our largest trading partner. Mike Lecouteur, CTV News, Ottawa.
New data suggests coffee drinkers across the country could be spending more money to make a fresh cup of joe. The Statistics Canada data find Canadian shoppers paid nearly 28% more for coffee at grocery stores in November compared to last year. Experts are linking the rising cost of coffee beans to climate change, crop diseases, and drought. Coming up, shepherding a flock of sheep who live on their own island. We'll have more on the family of Newfoundland farmers carrying out the tall task when we come back. A farmer in Newfoundland is working to pass on his labor of love to the next generation. He is responsible for a herd of sheep who live on their very own island. CTV's Garrett Barry has the story of the flock on the rock.
A house call like no other. As his father and grandfather did before, Keith Morey boards this boat to care for his flock on Ship Island. Here, the sheep roam free from predators and free to graze on salty, windswept grass that Morey believes improves the animal's flavor when the lambs get to the plate.
Coyotes are so numerous now, and they're getting bolder all the time. They're out in the middle of the day. It's just, this for us, this is a godsend, having this safe haven.
It's a cooperative of sorts. A handful of farmers share this island near Torscove in Newfoundland and share the labor of upkeep. It takes all of them, and more besides, to herd the animals, to check them for worms and other illnesses. This tradition has changed a lot. Lambs used to be caught one by one, brought down to the boat by rope. Now, the biggest challenge is getting enough people to herd.
The sheep that come here year after year, and some are leaders, and they know the routine. Sometimes you come out, as soon as they see us coming up over the bank, they say, especially in the fall of the year, they almost come running to the chute because they know it's time to go home.
Keith's nephew, Matt, and his son, Liam, are part of the next generation.
It was just the way of life, so me committed to taking this over, it's always been, it's in my blood,
They say they're bucking the trend. They will keep this farming alive, even if fewer and fewer of their peers are interested. Garrett Berry, CTV News in Ship Island, Newfoundland.
Great story. Jess and I did not expect that those sheep would end up on the plate. It took a turn.
But you know what? Beautiful scenery. Less so here.
That's right.
It is not great outside. So if you're heading out this afternoon, layers are going to be key. We are holding on to this wind as we head throughout the afternoon. So something to keep in mind if you're traveling this week, if you're still off from work, visiting family, to take care on the roads. We are still looking at really gusty winds, creating more of a lake effect snow for us here in the GTA. Heavier snow along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. Again, we are still under that wind warning. A breezy northwesterly wind throughout our day, and we're still looking at heavier snow in areas, again, closer to Lake Huron, Georgian Bay, down through London, and areas up towards Barrie. Temperature-wise is fresh, -2, feeling like -11, and that wind chill is wicked for most of us around the Golden Horseshoe. It doesn't get much better as we head in towards Tuesday, but at least maybe a sunny break or two. And then as we head in towards New Year's, we're still looking at the chance of some flurries mid-afternoon. It clears out just in time for the New Year's Eve celebrations. But if you're heading out, you're going to maybe join myself and Michaela Couture down at the Harbourfront. Layers are going to be key, but we will keep you dancing and keep you warm.
She's got her snow pants ready.
I do.
And that is CTV's News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and on our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca. For Jessica Smith and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching. I'm Natalie Johnson. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 6.